Hello, my name is Officer Harper. Is it okay if I ask you a couple questions?
Sure, officer. My name is Christian. I'm Chris's twin brother and neighbor.
Oh, I didn't know that. How close were you and your brother?
Very close. We spent a lot of time together as childs, obviously as identical twins. I would never try to hurt him or anything.
Did you know anyone that would want to hurt your brother?
Well, my brother was involved in a shady underground spatula black market. Perhaps some of his competitors would want to get him out of the business.
How did you see this? Where were you this night?
I was just out walking my dog and I got home, and I was looking out my window and I noticed a large-looking man jumping out of my brother's broken window. I immediately called the cops, but it was too dark. I didn't get a really great look at him.
Did you see anything else?
Well, as I said before, the man was pretty large. He was definitely, his head seemed bigger than usual, so maybe he was wearing some type of helmet. I don't really know.
Alright, thank you. That's all I have for today.
No problem.
Mr. Police Chief Eric,
Yes.
where were you on the night of the crime?
I was on my motorcycle from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m.
8 p.m. to 12 p.m. That's interesting,
Why?
because the murder was after 12 p.m.
Was it?
It was. I figure you know that as the police chief, you have access to all the records, Mr. Police Chief.
I told you not to look into this case.
Now, why is it that you wanted to delay this case so much?
Because it was a dead end. There was not circumstantial evidence to find the killer.
Mr. Police Chief Eric, we've been friends for years. I don't think you did this.
That's my middle name.
Your name is Logan. Your first name is Eric. Mr. Police Chief Eric, let's stay on focus, please.
Alright.
Alright? You're getting a little suspicious here. Did you know Mr. Chris?
Not personally.
Not personally. However, it is known that Mr. Chris was a shady character that was distributing high quality spatulas for a low price. And it is also known that your wife is a saleswoman of spatulas. And as you both know, that business is going downhill.
What's
Now,
the point of this?
Mr. Police Chief Eric, what we're saying is that you have a direct reason to be involved with Mr. Chris. And your alibi does not overlap with the death of Mr. Chris. Do you understand why this could be an issue, Mr. Police Chief Eric?
I suppose so.
Where were you after you went riding?
I went home.
You went straight home.
I stopped at McDonald's.
You stopped at a McDonald's,
Yes.
right? What did you get at the McDonald's?
I got a Diet Dr. Pepper. I've been watching my figure.
Right, of course, of course. Now, at this McDonald's that you said you went to,
Yes.
was it crowded that night?
No, it was 12 p.m. There's no one there.
Right, exactly. So, did you just come out with that Diet Dr. Pepper? Or did you come out with a spatula?
Why would I have a spatula?
Did you just have a spatula?
Why would I buy a spatula at McDonald's?
It's not about buying the spatula. Mr. Police Chief Eric, please stay on focus. It's not
Okay.
about buying the spatula.
Alright.
If you buy a spatula, there's evidence.
But I didn't buy the spatula.
Exactly. Did you maybe perhaps take the spatula from the McDonald's to kill Mr. Chris because your wife's business is going downhill?
If my wife owns a spatula business, why would I steal a spatula from McDonald's?
Because it can't be traceable back to her.
But it could be traced back to me since I was at the McDonald's.
Right, but the McDonald's owns the spatula, Mr. Police Chief Eric. It'd be the perfect cover.
What's your point?
Mr. Police Chief Eric, as much as we all love you here at the station, we believe you are a prime suspect in Mr. Chris's death.
Okay.
So, based on your timing, you said you were out riding from 8 to 12, and you stopped at McDonald's at 12,
Yes.
and then went straight home.
Yes.
You made no other stops
Diet Dr.
with your,
Pepper.
with your Diet Dr. Pepper. You made no other stops the whole evening,
Besides traffic lights.
besides traffic lights.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Why Why is that interesting? I'm a police chief. Of course I follow the laws.
Right, of course. Any law-abiding citizen would. However, there is a lot of time in between stoplights. There is. You have some of these lights, there's maybe a 30-second red light, but some can be upwards of 2 minutes.
Who leaves their motorcycle in the middle of a road for 2 minutes?
You said you were out driving past midnight. So
Until midnight.
Until midnight, correct.
Yes.
I apologize. So, you just said at the McDonald's, though, it was very empty. I would figure the streets would be empty the same way.
Yes, but there are
Correct.
still traffic lights.
Right. So, it's possible that you could have just stopped the traffic light, gotten off your motorcycle, and headed to see Mr. Chris. Is that possible?
No, there are no stoplights near Mr. Chris's house.
There is one. There's one stoplight near Mr. Chris's house. That'll put you on the way to the station, not necessarily your home. However,
But I wasn't going to the station. I was going to my home, which is a completely different way.
However, traffic footage has you going by that red light this past evening.
Can I see this footage?
We can show you after the interrogation, Mr. Police Chief Eric.
Okay.
However, based on this inconsistency in your story, things are not looking good. And as much as I want to believe that you did not kill Mr. Chris, we have mounting evidence to believe that you had both the motive and the ability to kill Mr. Chris.
The 6 types of evidence we found at the crime scene is circumstantial, direct, physical, biological, reconstructive, and associative. The circumstantial evidence we found at the crime scene is that the police chief would have motive to hurt Chris since he had an opposing business. The direct evidence was that Chris's brother saw Chris and a mysterious man enter Chris's house through the window and immediately called the cops, placing Chris and another person there, confirming it was a homicide. The physical evidence is that the spatula was used to stab Chris. The biological evidence we found was that there was blood found in the crime scene on a piece of broken glass. The reconstructive evidence we found was we constructed the window and found that the perp jumped into the house and not out of the house. This proves that it couldn't have been Chris's brother because he has a key to the house. The associative evidence is that Logan is competing with Chris in a spatula business.
Hello, I am the blood spatter analyst and totally not the interviewer you saw earlier in this video. Based on my expertise as a blood spatter analyst, first I'll explain what the blood spatter analyst does. A blood spatter analyst goes to the scene of a crime and they look at the blood spray patterns, the poolings, things like that. They study and focus on blood in a crime. So looking at Mr. Chris, Mr. Chris was murdered with a spatula, and based on the spatula, the angle at which the spatula came in, he was killed by an adversary taller than him, and we can figure that out based on the angle and then also the spray coming out of Mr. Chris at the time of the crime. At the same time, the pooling of the blood underneath Mr. Chris, you can figure out how long he's been there. And then also, we had to look at, upon further inspection of the crime scene, we found that the broken glass by the window was in fact not Mr. Chris's. However, it was mixed, so we do not have a definite culprit. However, based on the blood from the glass window, it is obvious that the assailant jumped through the window, broke the glass, cut themselves, came over Mr. Chris, overpowered Mr. Chris, and stabbed him from an upwards angle with the spatula, sending blood spatter across the wall to the side of Mr. Chris and back outwards as the spatula was pulled out and placed back in Mr. Chris. So that is my expert opinion. It was a taller assailant, so we believe that eliminates Mr. Chris's twin brother as a suspect, as the assailant was much taller than Mr. Chris.